Hey, everybody, welcome to the Enhance Your World show. I'm your host, Chris Alba. Today is January 8th, 2025. I hope you're having a great start to this year, this calendar year, rather. And, you're laying the groundwork um, for spring, so we can walk in this natural order of life. And as our nature comes to life, our energies will tend to shift from an introspective position to more of an externalized um, version, because the weather gets nicer. We want to be doing more things. Working within the seasons is a nice way to support your energy naturally. And so, the winter months are a little colder. This is a good time to plan and do introspection and set the groundwork for spring into the summer, into the fall, and move on with that. But anyway, and that goes to support our title for today of creation, communication, and frequency: how to harmonize your mind, body, and emotions. Um, and there's all these different techniques and teachings and all that kind of stuff. And we're just trying to talk about the concepts in general, um, and because everybody has their own path, where they've been throughout their life is part of their subconscious conditioning, as well as the present moment of now and where we desire to move forward. And so there's some of us that are looking to forward and grow in the 3D world, in the material world, through our identities of how we serve each other and our planet, how we show up in life, the possessions that we have, the materials that we possess, and have as resources, and where we put our energy in the 3D ultimately creates the legacy of our egoic self, um, beyond the version that we saw, because it's the version that caused the effect outside of us. I've been very blessed throughout my life um, to have walked with many different lifestyles and many different ways, and have many different teachings and teachers. And the one thing that brings it all together into unity for me is unconditional love is how you take care of yourself so you can take care of other people. And when we are only focused on ourselves and our effect and how challenging other friends and relatives and people are in our lives, and how the system is rigged against us and all those different things, we'll tend to shut ourselves off to opportunities to grow beyond that paradigm. When we learn new information, it brings to light things that we didn't know, which created the time frame, or the frequency level, if you will, of that state of awareness that allowed us to operate in that timeline. If that it seems real complex, but it can be really simple. Um, when you show up in life hopeful and loving and kind and curious and open, you're going to tend to find more opportunities in all things in life. That's why the practice of gratitude for the challenge in life is just as important as the reward and pleasure in life. Um, and it can be part of our path, and part of our healing is to go into suffering more, into the depths, into the shadows, into the unknowns, those types of things. So we can bring the light of our awareness that even those things were unpleasant, they helped us become a better version of ourselves. Um, because it's in my view, or in my experience rather, um, when I did things for my gain with no consequence, it made it easier not to think about um, the negative effects it had on other people in whatever way that it had. And it wasn't until I went through, emotional heartbreak and betrayal and abandonment and, physical robberies and violence and all those different things, where I was the one giving it, or I was the one receiving it, that gave me the totality of the truth of my true beingness. And while I don't believe that violence will open a closed mind, it will reaffirm direction. Let me give you an example of this. When I was a child and I was reprimanded in ways where I understood what I did wrong, I had the opportunity to not do it again. And wrong was, it could have been like an example I just came to my mind was I was so devastatedly hurt one time by my grandfather, who was very disappointed in me and angry with me because he told me not to get into the pool till I had it clean, for example. And as I was cleaning the pool, I couldn't reach certain parts, so I climbed in the pool so I could vacuum those parts. Well, that was against what he intended because he didn't want me in the pool because he didn't want me to get hurt with no supervision. At that time, I didn't think about that. So he reprimanded me and didn't let me go swimming. He didn't hurt me physically, but mentally and emotionally, he left a mark that taught me something. Now, and I was able to learn from that and grow from that in a more harmonious way within the relationship with my grandfather, because I knew that when he laid down a rule or say don't do this, he meant it, and if I crossed that, then there would be consequences. On the other hand, where I would do things where I would get in trouble and my dad would lose his emotions and come at me either violently, emotionally, or even physically. I can't remember on a lot of those circumstances what I did to get that punishment. What I can recall is how scared and how small and how vulnerable I felt in that moment. And that not knowing of the boundaries kept me in fear of crossing it. If we had an invisible fence in our yard, for example, there's a most of the fences that I've seen have a beep. It's a warning, like don't go. You go farther than this, there's going to be a consequence. And that's the development of our conscience. Our conscience. Not just consciousness, not just the mind, but our actual heart. The moral guide beyond the language. And so the reason that I titled the show that I did was because when we go to create something, it's usually out of a desire to grow beyond, to every innovation and technology, every modern convenience we have has come from an imagination, because there was a need for something or a want for something to go beyond what was currently there. And our identity, our mind, the way we relate consciously, subconsciously, unconsciously, all these various different forms can be replicated in the formless realm before we bring the behavior or action out into the physical reality. Nikola Tesla talks a lot about this and a lot of his stuff about how he would visualize and mentally rehearse everything in his head until it was actually perfect before he'd even try to start tinkering. And I think that's where, there's a opportunity for a lot of exciting growth in, what he learned in his notebooks and what he shared and what he wrote and the experiments that we know about and, all those different things. He was tapped into a higher consciousness, a higher level of thinking, that in that era was needed. And still to this day, his goal to create free energy is still a dream that that has yet to be completely realized because of the monetized system that we have. That was why Edison wanted DC over AC, because he was able to control the flow of energy, therefore he could charge for it. And that built his power companies and all those different things. If we were to look at it in our own personal lives, the tricky thing about getting past the mind is to get past the stories, get past the labels, get past the separations of this happened to me, I did this to this person did it to me. Like when we can go back into those visions and those experiences and those memories, just like reading a book, we can change the outcomes a lot of times by sitting in the emotion, the frequency of our feeling, rather than the intellect and saying this was right, this was wrong, because there's a deeper truth. Whether we want to talk about God or universe or source or energy or creator or any of these man-made mind structures, which is actually what most spiritual texts talk about, the illusion, that tries to point to something that is beyond our physical senses, our physical knowingness. And to wake up each and every day with an open mindset and an open heart of like, what am I going to get to create today? How am I going to create the best version of myself today? How am I going to communicate openly to share my thoughts and my feelings? Because that's what people can't see of my physical beingness. They may be able to read my energy. They may be able to read my body language. They may be able to, those types of things. However, to truly know somebody isn't to live just in your perspective, but it's to ask questions, so then they can share in their communication and their language, where they've been, where they are, where they want to go, what type of life do they want to live, how do they, like to relate, and how do they like to show up in this life, what are the hobbies, what are the interests, what are the hopes, the dreams, the aspirations. And when we can do this in a individual basis and then a collective basis, then harmonizing our mind, body, and emotions is the process of going from the creation, which is the idea, to the manifestation of when it's in form. We all want to, many of us talk about walking in community, and there's all these different communities, and the hard challenge with these communities is they want you to be exactly the same, and not think differently and not dress differently and not and there's different ways that they'll cause drama, because that's what the mind does, and saying, well, that person or this person shouldn't have done this or shouldn't do this or whatever. And that's fine. If that's your personal judgment, don't get involved. But the fact that it's out there and open, and you have the opportunity to choose whether to involve yourself or not, that's true freedom. It's not forcing an agenda on somebody. It's not forcing a vision on somebody. It's not forcing or trying to control or any of that other stuff. I've been for the last decade trying envisioning a healthy, happy, and harmonious lifestyle in regards to myself, how I show up for other people, and the genre and ways that I want to are in these natural healing modalities um, of that we've been gifted through the centuries of time, and empowering individuals to understand that we all have the energy to be and do what we desire to have, as long as it's not harming anything else or anyone else. There won't be any negative karma from that, right? The reflection of that, which means that you're going to have to go through some some challenges and some karma and some things to perfect that vision, because the visions that we have are usually based in a self-centered kind of way, because that's harmony. Um, and it's not until we relate to other people and try to show up for other people or try to be of service to other people that we get to see their perspectives, and of how it's benefited them, how it's not benefited them. Those are part of the whole truth. And that's why communication and the frequency of our communication is so important. For me, I'm learning in my journey, if I talk about my thoughts and my feelings, these are mine. No one has the right to devalue my thoughts or my feelings or my worth or what I feel is important. But I don't have the right to do the same, to try to do the same onto them. So when others come to me with, other perspectives, I thank them for them, even though they're not mine. They give me something else to consider that I didn't have before. For an example, I'm getting ready to leave to do ceremonies in Colombia. And it's amazing to me people's opinions and advice and insights, because they're basing it off of true crime television and things that they've watched, to make us fearful about being human and going and exploring other places and other cultures. Because if we truly understand that all humans inherently want the same things, just different versions of it. It would be like going to a buffet. Some people are going to eat vegan, some are going to eat carnivore, some are going to be omnivore, some are going to like this, some are going to like that. That's all the human experience really is a lot of variations. And why so many spiritual texts, in my view, say, if you can only see 5 colors, you're blind. If you can only hear 5 tones, you're deaf. Because there's so much to the life. There's so much to experience beyond the 5 senses. There's so much to explore beyond the confines of our conscious mind, and the things that we're able to recall, or the ways that we're able to imagine things. But the question that I have to ask every time for myself and other people is, how is this belief benefiting us for our future generations or our lives? It's great if you want to believe in fairy tale stories and mythology and all that kind of stuff. If you want to use that to help guide you while you're on your journey and all that kind of stuff, I've got no problems with that. But if you believe that there's an entity outside of yourself that is going to save yourself, your life, do life for you, you wouldn't be here. Creator didn't create us for no purpose. And our purpose isn't to just be a parasite and live off the system and live off other people. It's to participate and show up and do our part, from my view. And how that looks, why that looks, all that kind of stuff. That gets into the beautiful the beautiful variations of our color spectrum, of the sound spectrum, of our energy spectrums. All these things that we can measure with our science, is duplicatable in the higher realms above mind. Spirit is whole. It's our mind that filters it into manageable pieces to give us directionality in the unlimited potential and abundance of consciousness. Everything is part of the same. It's how we identify it that makes it pleasurable or painful. It's where a practice of gratitude comes in. It's where the practice of being loving comes in. It's practice of empathy. All these different things that people will say, this is what you need to do. This is how you need to behave. No, fuck that. You need to be you in the best way that you know how, in the best ways that you want to be, how you want to be remembered, how you want to show up in life. And when people guilt and shame and project and question and all that, that's how you know you're doing something special, something unique, because they can't see it for themselves. And I've not lost, but I've given a lot of energy away on waiting for the right moment. But I've always been on my way here. The question is when do I want to claim my true potential and step into that potential and use that potential each and every day to be the best version of myself, doing however it is and doing whatever it is that I'm trying to do within that presence of that day, because that in that moment, truthfully, in that present moment, because that's all we truly have. But if we want to quantify the mind a little bit, because sometimes talking about the void and potential is an unconditional love and stuff is too big for people to understand, because it's encompassing everything. It's the oneness of all things. And we see it in our nature. Everything tries to move towards pleasure by avoiding pain. So when you stop avoiding pain and you sit with it, you're not afraid of it anymore, you're okay with it. It might not be where you want to choose to continue to do it on a daily basis, but that will also show your strength and your ability to rejuvenate and to regenerate, as our cells are constantly doing. It's the story up here that keeps us experiencing the limitations in our physical reality. I fractured my back many years ago. They said I was going to have back pain and I needed to have surgery and all that. No, I didn't. No, I don't. Do I carry tension in my back? Yes, but it's less today than it was just a year ago. Why? Because I stopped trying to intellectualize my emotions, my stories, finding my justifications of why this happened or why I felt this way, or why I'm carrying shame from this, that, or the other. I stopped being here and just sat with it in my body. Being aware that my emotions are my bridge between my body and my mind. And if there's a resistance, if there is a lack of harmony, there will be a tension or a resistance. And then just working with that. Doesn't mean visions don't come up. Doesn't mean memories don't come up. That doesn't mean all this stuff. But I'm choosing not to journal about it. I'm choosing not to write it down. I'm choosing not to make it a thing, because it's energy. And I'm leaving it in the energetic in the energetic realms of the formulas. I'm not bringing it into reality by claiming that is my story. That doesn't mean that I haven't experienced things. That just means that I'm not using them as reasons, logic, and justifications of why I'm being the way that I am, other than trying to show up in the best way that I know how to be me in relation to those that I am walking with in all the spectrums of, mind, heart, and physical reality. And you're welcome, Nicole. Ashley Nicole. And I know how exciting it is. I remember when I first started learning about GMOs and, the labeling industry and food distribution and all that stuff, how angry I was that we, as a humanity, were doing this thing, the things that we were doing. And, I made this huge stance, and, I refused to eat all these foods. And, I haven't eaten fast food since high school. Like McDonald's specifically, I quit eating at 15 because I learned that they were destroying the rainforest for their cows. So I just quit giving them energy in the form of my financial currency. And I've continued to refine that through my years. And I work pretty diligently in trying to make sure that my money is going to the highest, for the highest good of all people, which tends to look like me trying to buy it locally, even though I do and will admit that it is sometimes easier and cheaper to go to corporations like Amazon and things like that to get our items, because there's a lack of options now. Most of them are corporations now, even if they're small family-owned corporations. So that becomes the challenge in our, American way of life. Now, when we travel overseas and out of the country, we tend to see a lot more self-employed families and stuff like that. And that's where like micro loans and things like that have really been advantageous to their economy, because it allows people to acquire the things that they need, the resources that they need to be able to do their job in the best way. As I'm developing this land into a retreat center, into a sustainable farm, there's equipment, there's buildings, there's resources, there's things that I will need to acquire to be able to fulfill that vision. And it may take time. It might not. Maybe, it comes when it's supposed to. And I found myself in 2024 really surrendering into that. A lot of my life, I've developed a lot of this tension in my body, and in my mind and in my persona, because I wanted it to happen right now. Right? I wanted that dream that I was chasing the dream. I even have on my keychain, don't stop chasing your dreams, because that's true. When you give up on your dreams, you're going to be creating someone else's, which, that's fine if that's your role that you want to play. If you just want to participate in something that you believe in, then that's a beautiful purpose. Not everybody is meant to be a visionary. Not everybody is meant to be an oracle. Not everybody's meant, in human design, they call it projectors. It's not everybody's meant to have that gift of vision and insight and foresight. But at the same time, there's certain people in this world that are really good doers, and they just need to be told what, shared some information, shown how to do something, and then they have this expertise that they're really, really good at. So that's the point that I'm trying to make, is like everybody in humanity fits the puzzle of humanity. It's figuring out how all the puzzle pieces go together that makes the whole collective image come together. And absolutely, Ashley, instant gratification, right? Like, I did something, where's my return? You know, I did all this good, I mean, how many of us, as we're walking through this thing, is like, I'm a good person, I'm doing good things, why do all these bad things happen to me? I don't understand. And playing that victim role, and then you realize, like, oh wait, they're happening to me because I'm not seeing these things within the way that I'm thinking, or the way I'm feeling, the way I'm behaving, the way I'm speaking, the way I'm communicating, the way I'm dressing. It is amazing, the difference. We could do human experiments. I've seen, Richard Gere dress up as a homeless guy in New York, and no one paid him any mind, because they thought he was homeless. As a former, punk rocker and goth kid and, counterculture guy, I can tell you that when you dress that certain way, you get a certain response out of people. When you dress in a suit, you get a different response out of people. I don't agree with it. It's just the way that we've been trained to be. And until we wake up and realize that it doesn't matter if we're wearing a suit, it doesn't matter if we're wearing fur clothes or whatever it is, it doesn't matter. What matters is the energy underneath of us, about how we think, how we feel, and how we behave in physical reality towards ourselves and each other, that keeps us in or out of the peace, love, and harmony that our nervous system, our energy needs and wants and desires. When you regulate your nervous system, oh my God, it's so much different than when you're deregulated, right? And, if you can be in a place of energy, we were having this a conversation the other day about the labels that we use, right? Like, you can feel anxious, and you could really actually relabel that to be excited or enthusiastic about something that you've yet to experience. And that changes the story because of the label and the condition and the meaning that's placed on that label. Absolutely, Ashley. Spot on. Yeah, being transparent in calm states of mind, body, and soul, and again, these labels are they help us relate to one another. The challenge being is what I think about how I believe soul means, and what maybe Ashley thinks soul means might mean a couple different things based on the teachings and the religions and the different things that we've studied. So it could keep us in a state of curiosity to go deeper. But if I just assumed that I knew what she was talking about, then we could have a miscommunication. And when we have a misunderstanding, when we make a mistake, when we have a miscommunication, when we make a misstep, those are natural and human things. It's how do we recover from that? How do we recognize where things went a little askew, and then work mentally, emotionally, and physically to come back into alignment with one another? And that's, to me, that I think is the practice that I'm looking to bring into my own life, as well as my clients through the different programs and enhancement services that we offer. Is just helping people raise the frequency, raise the concepts, raise the emotional, the hope, the faith, the compassion, the understanding, the empowerment that the only person that can keep us down is us. And if we're blaming everybody else for why we are in life where we are, well, then we'll probably destroy our relationships, end up in isolation, and realize that the only one that's ever held us back is ourselves. by the way we think, feel, and act. It's a great teaching. It's really humbling. And then the desire is, how do we grow from there? Absolutely, Ashley. I mean, grace is a big thing. I will be the first to admit I stayed away. Absolutely, Rhonda. It's progress, not perfection, because it is perfection in that moment. It's like when we're baking a cake and baking something and it doesn't turn out quite right because the ingredients were a little off, or it wasn't as good as one time when we had really fresh ingredients or something like that. I mean, that's, but again, even those comparisons are still mind based. So that really trips us up, right? How do we move into the abundance of all possibilities without judgment? Because without discernment, it's really hard to make a choice. And I've been there many times. And what happens is I choose not to make a choice. And then I have what the tarot readers would call a tower moment, where everything that needed to go goes, whether it was good, bad, or indifferent. It goes. And then I get to recreate a new version of myself in a new way, by the way that I think about myself, the way I feel about myself, the way I talk to myself. And that frequency and consistency will continue to build momentum until I start vibrating at a certain frequency. And then that's going to bring in what they call your soul tribe, right? Because everybody's vibrating at a similar frequency, whether it's conditional or not. True unconditional loving relationships allow you to go through the peaks and valleys, and maybe we don't necessarily commit our full selves to somebody going through a valley moment because they're having such a difficult time. But boy, do we want to be there on their peak moments, when they're taking a vacation, or when they're going to go do something fun, or they're going to go do something that you want to do. Boy, isn't it interesting how you get a little jealous because somebody's going to do something that you wanted to do, but not in relationship anymore, because there was a valley moment in that relationship that caused you guys to split. And now, there's not that connection anymore. The fact that you still want to go, the fact that you still want to be there, the fact that you still want to be in the room says that you still have love for that version of yourself and those people that you shared your time with at that time. What a lovely sentiment, in my belief. Whether you can or not depends on the conditions, right? It depends on the conditions of the relationship, whether it's, physical distance or emotional distance or mental distance. The only thing that keeps us from truly connecting with one another is the lack of desire to truly connect to somebody openly and honestly. And then we can accept them for themselves, whether we choose to participate in what they want to do or not, totally separate. Because then that's based on what we think, what we feel, and how we want to live. I mean, as a former, adult performer and swinger, and whatever I did in my past, in my relationships, I can tell you, just because we walked in that line, a lot of people just wanted to just go at it, and it was like, no, I want to get to know you. I want to build a relationship, because that energy is important. It's not just about the physical body, because that pleasure, I mean, that's temporary. But yeah, the connection, as Rhonda says, the connection will always remain. whether we give it energy or not. It's always going to be there. That I don't know if you guys have ever heard of the string theory, or the red line, the red thread that connects all life together. You can't cut cords with people. And yeah, all connections transform us in some way or the other. There's that motivational saying that says we're always in a state of growth. We're either growing better or we're growing bitter. Which one do we choose? And bitter to me is shutting down and saying, well, I tried this once. I tried being with this person once. I tried to have a communication. Or a conversation with this person. I tried to do this or I tried to do that and wasn't successful in the past. So therefore, I let go. I surrender. And that's a way to move on. Because as Ashley Nicole's saying, energy is infinite. Absolutely. It cannot be destroyed. So you're just transferring it somewhere else. Okay, this person isn't living up to my standards. I keep crossing my boundaries. They're lying to me. They're doing drugs. They're an addict. They're stealing. They're doing this, that, and the other. I need to choose to give myself space from them because they're going to hurt me other ways. My friend, Dr. Sharon Livingston, on the podcast, the original Enhance Your World show, we were talking about it. And when people are unconscious, what they're afraid of is the unknown. So it's like they slash machetes at everything that's foreign and unknown to them because it's scary, because they feel disempowered. They feel traumatized by the past. It's a form of self-protection. That's why other people that are less open-minded and open-hearted are going to tell you what you think or what you feel isn't valid or is wrong based on their perspective of how they see and how they feel things. Because it's different. And it's not wrong. It's just different. And it's supposed to be. Otherwise, what's the purpose of the two entities looking the same, thinking the same, feeling the same? There's no purpose. Nothing in nature is the same. Similar, relatable, but not the same. So why would our waking life, our conscious life, our man-made life, our natural life be any different? I make a smoothie every day. Similar ingredients. Tastes different every day. Some days it's better than others. So what? I can appreciate all of it. Yeah, it's understanding that sets the differences. And in a closed mind, I can speak for me. When I was closed-minded, it was because I couldn't see another way. I couldn't see from their perspective. I didn't understand it. And at that time, maybe I was in my emotions and didn't want to because I was being reactive and protective of my values and mindsets of how we got to that point and wherever we were in that point of time and relationship. And I don't feel like I've ever lost anybody in my life because they're still there even when they're not in physical form anymore. But I sure do miss the opportunities of just investing some time together and being in each other's company. And, yeah, you're right, Rhonda. Um, if the relationship comes, okay, thank you. You know, if it goes away, okay, thank you. Like, it's gratitude, and it doesn't mean, my hope with this podcast, um, is is to bring us back to the foundation of the golden rules of how we treat ourselves, how we treat others is how life treats us. To me, that is one of the simplest explanations of spirituality and living a spiritual life. If you're not planting seeds into the future and expecting to have a abundant harvest, um, you might be setting yourself up for disappointment. But if you invest the energy into doing what you can with what you have, you're going to always have more. And I found in my life, in my professional life, and all that, if I didn't give what I had, I didn't feel like I deserved more, because I was feeling like I didn't already have enough. So then I was focused on, I don't have enough. So how could I attract the energy of more? It's always enough for now. And we'll always want and need more in the future. I'm eating right now, but I'll have to eat later. It's part of living life, not creating this life that's on autopilot, that's just going to do everything for you, and you just show up and kind of exist. That's not what we came here for. That's not our purpose. As one of my teachers said, that when the creators created its first creation of being, that its purpose was just to be. And the challenge with that was that it didn't do anything. It just was being. It just existed. And so then they had to create time, which is death. That's why, most people are worried about dying, but they're not focused on actually living. But death comes for us all. And so there's time, and then gender, which then creates in us a desire to do, to attract a mate, so we can procreate. And we can further the human story. Just like in every other living animal, one of their main purposes, even plants, is to create life beyond itself. In fact, there's a story that talks about that nothing in nature consumes itself. An apple doesn't eat its apples. An apple tree doesn't eat its apples. Kind of thing. The water doesn't drink its own water. Everything lives for everything else. In nature, it's the man-made reality where we've created identity, where creates a hierarchy of some are more deserving than others. And now we live in this world where we all have an opportunity and freedom to rewrite our stars. We're not all in these structures like we did in the past, like the caste system and stuff like that, to where you're born a blacksmith's son, you're going to be a blacksmith. That's just the way it is. You can't change it, because that was the way it was done back then. We're not in those times now. You know, we can change professions, we can change careers, we can choose lifestyles and different ways to be human, but ultimately we're all here to have a human experience of life in the best way we know, think and feel, as if it is the best way. Until we learn better, then we have the opportunity to do that. And that's the beautiful thing about naturally growing. And so I want to wrap up today's show. Thanks, Ashley Nicole and Rhonda Moore, for tuning in and commenting and being part of the conversation. Super, super appreciate that. It's so much more fun with participation. So thank you. And for all those that are checking us out on the rebroadcast, you can check us out on the Enhance Your World Show Facebook page, on YouTube under the same handle, or you can just go to our website, enhancingyourworld.com. Make sure while you're there, check out our online free community. It's a social network. The idea is to be able to share encouraging, supportive, and inspirational time and energy and services to help raise the frequency of our humanity in a collective effort beyond just one practice or mindset or religion or spiritual practice or anything. It's the idea is to bring unity into it and understand that how we choose to communicate, how we choose to see things, how we choose to perceive, creates the heaven and hell in our lives. And let's focus on the higher realms of how we can grow together versus how we've been separated in our past and still are in this moment. So thanks again for tuning in. Check out our website. Thanks for tuning in any which way you do. And we're going to be off next week. Like I said, going to be in Colombia, but we will be back the week after. So looking forward to it. Much love and gratitude. Thank you for all that you do, are, and choose to be in this life. And thanks for participating with me. I super duper appreciate it. And until next time, much love and gratitude. Bye-bye.